Hey everyone, welcome back to Stadium Stats. Today we're going to be taking a look at my top 12 power rankings as we enter week 18 of the NFL. The reason I'm going to be doing 12 this time is because 12 teams have officially clinched the playoffs out of the 14 spots, as 2 division titles are still up for grabs in the NFC South and the AFC North. So the Panthers, Buccaneers, Ravens, and Steelers will all be battling it out for their playoff spots, but these other 12 teams have already clinched their playoff spots and are therefore going to be on this list. So without further ado, don't forget to subscribe, like my content. I'm posting long-form content on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as short-form content on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter/X, and also YouTube Shorts. So make sure to tune in to all of my content, like, comment, subscribe, as it really means a lot to me. And without further ado, let's jump right into this. Coming in at number 12, I've got the Packers, who are just really beat up. Their defense has been really bad lately, especially in the run game, as in the last couple minutes of that Bears game, they collapsed and let up 2 big touchdowns to the Chicago Bears, who ended up coming back and winning. Their special teams also didn't look great, as they let up an onside kick in that game, which kept the Bears alive. And ultimately, they are locked in at the number 7 seed and have a terrible run defense right now because Derrick Henry just ran all over them. Also, they all have injuries on the offensive side, in addition to Micah Parsons and many other players on the defensive side. This team is very beat up. It's not the same team it was earlier in the season. It's also not coached incredibly well, as there's some really interesting coaching decisions, such as running the ball out of shotgun on 3rd and 1 multiple times and never really succeeding with that. There's just a lot of questions with this team. They're locked in at the number 7 seed. They're going on the road for the entirety of the playoffs. 3rd straight year, they're the number 7 seed. Can they win a playoff game yet again? Yet to be seen. We will find out, but I don't think this team thinks they're going very far, and I ultimately do not think they are Super Bowl contenders with all their injuries. Same thing can be said with my number 11 spot in the Los Angeles Chargers, as they are beat up on that offensive line. They're benching their starters this week to give Justin Herbert a rest, finally, as he has a broken hand and has been playing through it. That team has a lot of potential, but that O-line is really dragging it down, as their defense is great. Their offense can be great, but Justin Herbert gets sacked more than almost any quarterback, especially out of the ones that are actually making the playoffs. So I don't have a lot of faith that this team goes very far in the playoffs. I don't think they are Super Bowl contenders this year, as they just have too many injuries on that offensive line and aren't consistent enough on their offense, both in the run game and the pass game, as Justin Herbert has really just put that team on his back, and the receivers really need to kind of step up, as they've kind of disappeared a bit. Quentin Johnston had some great games, also had some poor games. Ladd McConkey was great for a part of the season, but really hasn't been featured very much lately. And Gadsden was having a ton of issues against the Texans with drops. So I don't see this team going very far. I'm not thinking they're Super Bowl contenders, but we'll see what happens to them in the playoffs. Moving on to number 10, I've got the Buffalo Bills. They have a wide receiver problem and a run defense problem, as their run defense seemingly cannot stop anything, and their pass offense is too reliant on Josh Allen doing everything, as he doesn't have any dominant receivers to catch the ball from him. That seemingly is a problem, as there were a few big catches against the Eagles, but it led to nothing. They have a really mid-pass game, as they don't have any great weapons. Josh Allen seemingly is also playing through a foot injury, and it seems to be affecting his play, and this may not be the year for the Bills. Yes, the Chiefs aren't in the playoffs, and yes, therefore their path is a little bit easier in the AFC, but I just don't have a lot of hope for their offense without any pass catchers. So I think they got to fix that. Unless Khalil Shakir or somebody else can step up, this may be the end of the road for the Bills. I'm not ruling them out of being a Super Bowl contender, as Josh Allen realistically is all you need to be a Super Bowl contender, especially when James Cook is the running back for that team and is leading the league in rushing yards. But I just don't have a lot of hope for that pass game, especially with the Josh Allen injury and lack of receivers. Moving on to number 9, I've got the Eagles. Their defense is elite, and that's all I can say good about them. Their offense cannot play a complete game. They had 17 yards in the second half against the Bills. It's multiple times this season that they've shown up in one half and not the other. It keeps happening. Their offense is not consistent at all. Poor play calling, poor effort. Jalen Hurts didn't even complete a pass in the second half. They collapsed. And they still came away with the win, but that's not going to bring them far in the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked if they won a playoff game or two. I just don't see them being a Super Bowl contender unless they can clean up their act on offense. And I think that's possible, but it's really getting to the point where it's seeming less and less likely every week. So the Eagles are in at 9. At 8, I've got the Texans. They've been on a win streak. They look like a very good team. They're amazing on defense. They have the potential on offense. CJ Stroud can be great, and he showed it in those first 5 minutes of that game against the Chargers, but then disappeared the rest of the game. And it's just these offensive inconsistencies, just like some of the other teams we've been talking about, where the offensive line is not consistent at all. Their pass game is not consistent, and their run game is not consistent. Their defense is one of the best in the whole league, though. So that will keep them in games. They will be fighting till the end. They are a Super Bowl contender, especially if they can clean it up on offense. But that defensive line is scary. A lot scarier than that offensive line and inconsistent offense in general. Moving on to number 7, I've got the Broncos, as the Broncos are winning games, but they didn't even beat their division rival in an impressive fashion, as the Chiefs, who had a third-string quarterback were in that game the entire time, and at points were leading. The Broncos do have some problems. Their defense has gotten worse throughout the season. Their offense is inconsistent, but they have so much potential and really good coaching that if they can clean things up, they really could be a Super Bowl contender and go as far as any team really could. They have shown throughout the season that they find ways to win games. They find ways to get sacks, and ultimately they have an amazing defense. If it can shine through, that's what needs to be seen in the playoffs, as they play up and down to their opponents. So we got to see what they are like against other playoff teams. But I do think this team is a Super Bowl contender. I just have some concerns with the consistency of this team. Moving on to number 6, I have the LA Rams. They really have fallen down a little bit, mainly due to their special teams problems they've had throughout the season, which led them to firing their special teams coordinator, which actually seems to have made a difference in that Monday Night Football game against the Atlanta Falcons, as that is what brought them back in the game, was a blocked kick returned for a touchdown. Their special team seems to have improved. We just need to see more consistency with that, as it's only been 1 week. The real problem that I have with this team is their consistency as well now on all facets of the ball, as they initially were dominant on both offense and defense, but seemingly have lost a step on both sides of the ball, as especially in consistency, as Matthew Stafford has had a few really bad games that have led to multiple interceptions and ultimately costing him what was likely his MVP season, as he threw 2 pick sixes against the Atlanta Falcons. That cannot really happen. Well, one of them ended up getting called back and just being an interception, but the amount of turnovers he's had in the last few games has been problematic and nowhere near as efficient as he was in the beginning of the season, as well as the fault of the defense not being able to handle the game plan of Bijan Robinson clearly getting the ball on most plays, where they saw he was getting the ball, he was being really successful, and they still couldn't key in on him to stop him. This team has a top 10 offense and defense when they are performing as they should. It's just a question of will they continue to perform as they should, especially against other playoff teams, as they really didn't even perform that well against non-playoff teams such as the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. They have all the potential in the world. I still see them as a Super Bowl contender. It's just a question of consistency on all facets of the ball, and can they continue their upturn with special teams. Moving on to number 5, I've got the Chicago Bears. They played their most complete offensive game of the entire season against the 49ers, as they put up 38 points. Caleb Williams looked exceptional, even without Rome Odunze in the game. DJ Moore seemed pretty absent, and they didn't stutter, as Luther Burden and Colston Loveland and DeAndre Swift carried the load, and Caleb threw for over 300 yards for the first time this season. He's 270 yards away from the first Bears 4,000-yard passer. And ultimately, this team has a lot of hope on offense. It's just a question of can they force the turnovers that they've been forcing throughout the season that have been timely, as they had a timely pick six on the first play of the game, but then didn't force another turnover, and their defense let up 42 points. Their defense definitely is a liability. It's a bend but don't break defense, as Dennis Allen's defense lets up a lot of yards, but ultimately had been stopping teams in the red zone, like the Packers being 0 for 5 the week prior. However, against the 49ers, that wasn't the case, as the Niners could do anything they wanted on offense, and that's where the concerns lie for the Bears, is the consistency on defense. And, as well, the slow starts on offense. They looked better against the 49ers, as they only had 1 to 2 drives at the beginning that were kind of stalling out, but they seemingly can't get things going on the first drive, and I don't think that's a great sign for going against other playoff teams. It's just a question of, can this coaching staff continue to improve as they have throughout the season, and can the players continue to improve, especially on offense, like they have? Because if those rookies are stepping up, if Caleb is playing the way he has, if the coaching from Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen and a lot of those coaches who are likely to get poached in the offseason, like Al Harris, the defensive back coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, the running backs coordinator, I think ultimately they have a lot of potential. They could go very far and could be a Super Bowl contender. It's just a question of, can they clean up the defense? Can they continue forcing turnovers as they have and make them timely? And can they be consistent? Moving on to number 4, I've got the Patriots. Drake May played unbelievable against the Jets. He's played unbelievable all year. Their offense is firing. They just have a mediocre offensive line and mediocre receiving weapons. But Drake May is so good at spreading the ball out that seemingly hasn't mattered, and they have a two-headed monster at running back between Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, who have both been performing really well. I do think this team is really balanced. I think this team could go very far, and I ultimately think, yes, this team could win the Super Bowl. It's just yet to be seen how they will end up performing against other really good teams, as their schedule has been generally pretty easy this year, but they have been playing really well against those poor opponents and have been beating the tough opponents that are in front of them. I do think the fact that they collapsed against the Bills after being up as much as they were was problematic. However, I do think that the Patriots have some of the highest potential, could win the Super Bowl. Their coaching's amazing. Their defense is amazing. Their offense is amazing. And there's really minimal flaws outside of mediocre weapons and offensive line. Moving on to number 3, I've got the 49ers. And this one comes with a caveat, as Kyle Shanahan is an unbelievable play caller, head coach, just been unbelievable throughout. And the fact that they are in contention for the number 1 seed this week, despite the injuries they've faced, Brock Purdy missing half the year, George Kittle missing a lot of the year, Ricky Pearsall missing a lot of the year, Brandon Ayuk missing the whole year and quitting on the team, Fred Warner being out for season, although he might come back for the playoffs now, it looks like, and Nick Bosa being out for a year, and Mykal Williams, their first-round pick, being out for a year. It makes sense why their defense is the way it is. But they made some timely stops against the Bears, which ultimately was the difference in that game. And while they do not generate pressure, they can get some stops, especially in the red zone, as Robert Saleh is an amazing defensive mind. They have some really good defensive pieces. If they can get Fred Warner back in the playoffs, that would be huge for them. And their offense looks like the best in the entire league, has just been non-stop since Brock Purdy came back. And so I really do think that this offense might be too much for most playoff teams to handle and could be enough to propel them far into the playoffs, especially considering they may have home field advantage in every single game of the playoffs, including potentially the Super Bowl, if they make it, as the Super Bowl is held in San Francisco this year. So the 49ers, despite having a liability sometimes at defense, as they are very inconsistent and really do not have a pass rush, I think getting players back, I think their defensive-minded coordinator in Robert Saleh, who has ultimately turned this defense around despite having a ton of young weapons on that defense, and just continued improvement. And ultimately just their offense being as high-powered as it is makes them a Super Bowl contender as they can put up against the best of them. Moving on, at number 2, I've got the Jaguars, as they seem to be the best team in the AFC. They dominated the Broncos just a couple weeks ago. They found a way to come back against the Colts, who were playing really well, and then just weren't doing much after the Jags started coming back, being down 10. And Trevor Lawrence looks great. Just really impressive year from him. Continues to improve. Travis Etienne in that run game looked great. Their defense has been forcing turnovers, just looks great all around, and has been really good at certain points throughout the year. The only problem I have with the Jaguars is they've gone in spurts this year. They've had some high highs and some low lows throughout the season, as some games they play really well and some they don't. However, when they play well, they play complete football. That was most evident with their dominant game over the Chargers, where they won by almost 30 points. But they also have some poor games like they did against the LA Rams, where they lost by almost 30 points. So it's yet to be seen what this team exactly is consistency-wise, but their potential is up with the best of them. They really, really look amazing on both sides of the ball. Liam Cohen's doing an excellent job as a first-year head coach. Really deserves to be in the running for Coach of the Year. And ultimately, the Jaguars are much improved from where anyone thought they'd be. Trevor Lawrence, much improved. And this team has a lot of hope and can be a Super Bowl contender. Moving on to number 1, I've got the Seattle Seahawks. They just seem like the most complete team in the NFL. Their offense is amazing. Their defense is amazing. Their special teams is amazing. Although Rashid Shaheed did get hurt, and ultimately that could hurt their special teams. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, unstoppable. Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, really good running back duo. Defense, one of the best, if not the best in the entire league. Absolutely shut the Panthers down. Coaching, amazing job by Mike McDonald in his second year. Sam Darnold is the one flaw with this team, as he himself is amazing, but also is inconsistent, and is the main inconsistency with this team, as they have slow starts on offense, and ultimately Sam Darnold is very inconsistent, turns the ball over more than he really should, and is sometimes a liability, as it really looked like he was going to cost them that game against the Rams, but also can be clutch and brought them back in that game. So this team has all the potential in the world. They are very well balanced. It's just, can Sam Darnold continue to play great, or does the seeing ghosts version of Sam Darnold from the Jets come back to haunt them? Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. Please let me know what you guys think of this new format of doing the predictions separate from the power rankings. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as follow me on all of my socials for short-form content, where I will be posting clips from the podcast on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Twitter/X, Facebook, Instagram, and also LinkedIn. So please make sure to give me a follow on all of those, and I'll tune in with you guys next time. Peace.